Lizzie Johnson, a 19-year-old black teenager, steps into the bustling courtroom. Her appearance is modest, neat. Hair a simple fit and backpack nothing to draw attention, but beneath her calm exterior lies a mind sharper than most adults. At her young age, Lizzie has already achieved something extraordinary. She passed the bar exam, something few adults ever accomplish, but today she's not here to boast about her accomplishments. She's here as a defendant fighting for her right to a proper education. The local school system has failed to accommodate her advanced learning needs, and Lizzie is ready to challenge them. The courtroom is filled with people, but Leslie's eyes are drawn to the judge presiding over the case. Judge Robert Stein. He's an older white man with a reputation for being difficult and unpredictable. With decades of experience on the bench, he is known for his sharp temper and tendency to dismiss cases as especially those involving people of color. Lizzie watches closely as he reviews the case file, his expression unreadable. She can sense something isn't right. His reputation precedes him, and Lizzie feels a sense of unease as the proceedings begin. Lizzie notices something troubling. Judge Stein doesn't seem interested in hearing the facts of her case. Instead, he's quick to interrupt, speaking over her, and her lawyer's gaze lingers just a little too long on her, almost like he's sizing her up. Lizzie isn't intimidated. She's been through tougher situations before, but she can feel the bias in the air. It's subtle but unmistakable the way he responds to her, dismissing her input with a wave of his hand makes her suspect that the issue isn't her case, but her race. Lizzie has spent enough time observing people to know when someone is being treated unfairly, and today she feels the weight of bias bearing down on her. Judge Stein's actions might be hidden behind a facade of professionalism, but Lizzie knows better. She's no stranger to racial prejudice, and she can feel its presence in the room. Determined to get to the bottom of it, Lizzie decides to do what she does best. She's going to test her theory. She won't reveal her true abilities just yet. Instead, she'll play the part of a regular teenager, just another young person hoping for a fair shot in the courtroom. By pretending to be less knowledgeable, Leslie hopes to see how Judge Stein truly treats her without the defense mechanisms that her intelligence might trigger in the back of her mind. Lizzie knows this isn't just about her case, it's about exposing a deeper systemic issue, one that affects not only her, but many others who have faced discrimination in the courtroom. She's determined to see it through, knowing that she's not only fighting for her own rights, but also for the rights of others who have been wronged by the legal system. As the court session continues, Lizzie sits back in her chair, playing the role of an innocent teenager. She deliberately holds back on her knowledge of the law, acting as if she's unsure of the process, unsure of the specifics of her case. To the casual observer, she looks like a teenager who's out of her depth, unsure of how to navigate the complexities of the courtroom. Judge Stein, however, isn't fooled. He sees a young person, someone he expects to be inexperienced, someone he assumes is beneath him, and that's when the remarks start. The subtle digs, the dismissive gestures. The first few are small snide comments about how it must be tough for a teenager to understand such complicated legal terms. Leslie doesn't flinch. She keeps her composure, letting him believe that she's just another teenager and over her head, but inside she's taking note of every word, every gesture. It doesn't take long before the judge's true nature reveals itself. Whenever Lizzie speaks or offers an argument, Judge Stein interrupts her, questioning her understanding of the case with a condescending tone. I'm sure you don't fully grasp the complexities of this situation, he says, his voice dripping with patronization. Maybe someone else could explain it better. The courtroom seems to tense at his words, but no one says anything. Leslie's lawyer is seasoned professional, tries to intervene, but Judge Stein brushes him off just as easily. Lizzie, however, remains calm. She doesn't argue with the judge. Instead, she sits quietly, her eyes narrowing as she watches his every move. It's clear to her that the judge isn't challenging her legal knowledge, he's challenging her. Because of who she is, he assumes that because she's young and black, she doesn't have the ability or the right to challenge the system. As the trial goes on, the comments become more frequent, more targeted. I'm sure you think you're an expert, but I'd expect a little more respect from someone your age, Judge Stein says with a smirk. It's not just the dismissive tone that gets to Leslie, it's the implication that someone like her, a black teenager, can't possibly be qualified to take on a system that has historically worked against people like her. Despite the judgmental remarks, Lizzie doesn't reveal her knowledge. She wants to know if Judge Stein will continue to treat her this way when he believes she's just an AR teenager. The more he pushes, the more Leslie feels certain that her suspicions about him are correct. He's not just disrespecting her, he's disrespecting her because of her race, her age, and her perceived place in society. It's becoming clear that Leslie's theory is right. Judge Stein is biased, and it's affecting his ability to judge her case fairly, but Lizzie won't let that stop her. She's here for a reason, and she's going to fight for justice no matter how long it takes or how difficult it becomes. Now, Lizzie is ready for her next move. The test is working, and the judge's true colors are beginning to show. The next step, time to turn the tables. As the trial continues, Lizzie feels the tension in the room growing, and it's not just because of her case. She can feel the weight of Judge Stein's hostility bearing down on her with every passing moment. His comments grow sharper, more condescending, and more personal. It's becoming clear that his attacks aren't aimed at the legal issues at hand. They're aimed at her age, her race, her very presence in the courtroom. Judge Stein doesn't bother to hide his biases anymore. Whenever Lizzie speaks up or tries to present her case, he interrupts her with dismissive remarks. He questions whether she can truly grasp the complexity of the legal issues, as though a teenager of color couldn't possibly understand the law. Are you sure you know what you're talking about, or are you just repeating what you've heard? He sneers at one point, his eyes narrowing as if to belittle her. The worst part is that his behavior is inconsistent. He speaks with patience and respect when addressing the defense lawyer, a middle-aged white man, but when it comes to Lizzie, it's clear that his attitude shifts. His tone becomes sarcastic. When she makes valid points, he dismisses her arguments with unnecessary comments about her intelligence, as if her ability to understand the law was tied to her age or race. Lizzie stays calm, never showing her hand. She knows this behavior as part of a larger pattern. She's seen it before in the way people treat others who don't fit their ideal of authority or intelligence, but this time Lizzie is ready. She's not going to let him get away with it. The courtroom is starting to take notice of the judge's behavior. Some of the jurors glance uneasily at one another, while the gallery murmurs in confusion at how the judge treats Lizzie so differently from the other lawyers. But no one speaks up, not yet. Leslie is documenting everything, every comment, every look, every instance where Judge Stein treats her with unfair disdain. She's collecting it all piece by piece. She knows that when the time comes, she'll have the evidence she needs to expose his bias and bring him to justice. Her frustration builds, but she doesn't let it show. Instead, she uses it to fuel her resolve. She may be young and she may be underestimated, but she is sharp and she's determined to see this through. She won't back down or let the judge's bias derail her fight for justice. Leslie understands the importance of being strategic. The judge is in control of the courtroom, but she knows that his control is based on his authority, not his competence. She decides to wait. She won't reveal her full hand until the moment is right. For now, she stays calm, letting the judge think he has the upper hand. Her Time is coming, and when it does, she'll make sure he won't be able to ignore the truth. The trial has reached a breaking point. Leslie has collected all the evidence she needs, the comments, the condescension, the unequal treatment. She has it all. She's been patient, but now Lizzie knows it's time to act. The constant undermining of her abilities, the racial undertones in Judge Stein's comments, the dismissive attitude toward her. She's had enough as the judge interrupts her once again, asking a question that's both unnecessary and insulting. Lizzie stands up, her heart races, but her voice remains steady and strong. She's done playing the part of a confused teenager. The truth is, Lizzie knows the law better than most adults in the room. She knows exactly what's going on, and she's not going to let Judge Stein's bias go unchecked any longer. I know the law, Lizzie announces, her voice clear and confident. I know what's happening here, and I'm not afraid to speak up. The courtroom goes silent. All eyes turn to her, and for a moment even Judge Stein seems taken aback. His eyes widen as Leslie steps forward, no longer hiding behind her previous facade. Her presence in the room shifts. She's not just a teenager in the defendant's chair anymore. She's the one who's about to expose the truth. I may be young, but I know when something isn't right. Leslie continues, and what's happening in this courtroom is wrong. She takes a deep breath and starts to lay out the case, not the one involving the school's failure to accommodate her, but the case of bias, racism, and injustice. Lizzie begins presenting her evidence, outlining every instance of the judge's bias behavior. She explains how he dismissed her arguments based on her race and age, how he gave preferential treatment to the defense lawyer, and how his actions violated her rights. The entire courtroom is stunned. No one expected this. The judge, who has spent years hiding behind his authority, is now caught in the spotlight. He's unable to hide his shock as Leslie rattles off legal jargon with the precision of a seasoned attorney. The defense lawyer, who had been given the benefit of the doubt, sits speechless. The jurors exchange glances, clearly disturbed by what they've just heard. Leslie's argument is airtight. The evidence is undeniable. She's methodical, clear, and confident. She doesn't need to shout or make a scene. She simply states the facts. Judge Stein, for the first time in the trial, is silent. He's been exposed. The weight of Leslie's words sinks in. She's not just a teenager who happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. She's a legal force to be reckoned with, and she's just shown the entire courtroom that she has the skills, the knowledge, and the courage to fight for justice, no matter who stands in her way. The moment of truth has arrived, and Judge Stein can't escape the consequences of his own actions as Lizzie confidently lays out her evidence. The silence in the courtroom grows heavier. Judge Stein, who had been ruling with an air of arrogance, now finds himself caught in a web of his own making. He stammers, trying to maintain his composure, but it's clear that he's rattled. His face turns bright red, his hands gripping the sides of his chair as if they could somehow anchor him in the situation. He looks around, desperate for support, but it's too late. Lizzie has exposed him. The other people in the courtroom, from the jurors to the spectators, watch in stunned silence. They had never expected such a turn of events. The defense attorney, who had been so dismissive of Lizzie, sits frozen, his mouth hanging open. He's caught off guard by how thoroughly Lizzie has dismantled the judge's behavior. The entire room is stunned by the teenager's composure, her knowledge, and her ability to present the facts with such precision. Lizzie remains calm, her voice steady as she ties everything together. She highlights every instance where Judge Stein's bias toward her was evident, from the sarcastic remarks about her intelligence to his undue favoritism toward the defense attorney. She explains how each of his actions had skewed the proceedings and how, as a result, her right to a fair trial had been compromised. She backs up every point with documented evidence, citing court record statements and even the judge's own words despite his attempts to redirect the conversation. Leslie's arguments are too compelling. She doesn't need to shout or make exaggerated statements. She simply speaks the truth. The evidence she presents makes it clear that the judge's conduct wasn't just poor, it was discriminatory. Judge Stein's attempts to deflect fail miserably. He stutters, trying to regain control, but it's as if the air has been sucked out of the room. The power dynamic has completely shifted. Lizzie, a young black teenager, has not only outsmarted him, but has done so in front of the entire courtroom. His grip on the situation is slipping, and the realization dawns on him that he cannot undo what has just been exposed. The judge tries one final desperate attempt to redirect the conversation, but Lizzie is ready. She delivers her closing statement with such clarity and confidence that it's impossible to ignore the truth. Her logical and well-supported argument leaves no room for debate. The judge's bias, now laid bare, is impossible to deny. For the first time in the trial, Leslie's intelligence and legal expertise are front and center. The audience, once skeptical of her, now watches in awe as she confidently lays out the facts. The respect she earns from the room is immediate and undeniable. Judge Stein is left speechless, his authority and reputation shattered by a teenager who refused to be dismissed. The courtroom is still in shock as Lizzie finishes her closing statement. For a moment, it's as if time has frozen. Everyone is waiting for Judge Stein's response. His face, once filled with superiority, is now pale, his eyes darting around as if searching for an escape, but there is no escape. The truth is out, and there's no way to turn back. Realizing that his position is untenable, Judge Stein slowly leans forward, muttering something under his breath. He doesn't meet anyone's eyes, knowing full well that his biases and actions have been fully exposed. He clears his throat, his voice strained, and announces that he is recusing himself from a case. He can't continue presiding over a trial where his impartiality has been called into question so thoroughly. The courtroom reacts with mixed emotions. Some are stunned by the audacity of Leslie's actions, while others are deeply moved by her courage. But all of them now understand that a grave injustice has been done, and that Lizzie is the one who brought to light. Judge Stein's face, once a symbol of authority, now looks like a man defeated. His reputation, built over years of judicial work, has been tarnished in an instant. An investigation into his conduct is inevitable. Lizzie, on the other hand, stands tall. She has not only defended her right to a fair trial, but has done so in a way that has brought attention to the systemic biases that many have suffered in silence. As the news of the trial spreads, Leslie's name begins to make headlines. She's no longer just the teenager in the courtroom. She's a young legal prodigy, someone who has taken a stand and brought about real change. Her intelligence, her fearlessness, and her pursuit of justice have captured the public's attention. Opportunities flood, and for Leslie, legal organizations reach out to her, offering her a chance to work with them to fight for justice and equality. Her story becomes an inspiration to many, especially young people of color who feel that the system has not been designed to treat them fairly. Leslie shows them that no matter your age or background, you can make a difference. As for Judge Stein, the consequences of his actions come swiftly. The investigation into his behavior leads to disciplinary action, and his reputation as a judge is permanently damaged. He will no longer have the trust or authority he once held. The damage is done. His biases have been exposed, and his ability to act impartially has been compromised beyond repair. Leslie's actions send a powerful message to everyone in that courtroom and beyond. Racism, bias, and injustice will no longer go unchecked. The story of a young black teenager who stood up for what was right becomes a symbol of the fight for equality, and Leslie's legacy continues to inspire those who come after her, ensuring that her courage will be remembered for years to come.